Okay, right. Well, hello and welcome to our AxonOps Masterclass webinar. On this Masterclass today, we will be introducing and unpacking why Cassandra and Kafka are the perfect data partners. I'm Steve Benton and I lead the Cassandra community engagement here for AxonOps, and I'll be your host for today's Masterclass. Now, of course, with any Masterclass, we must have our masters, and today we have three of the finest in the house. We've got Johnny Miller, James Kavanagh, and Karl Sorensen. Welcome, guys. Great to have you joining us today.
Hello there.
Great.
Hey, there we go. Feel the energy in the house. Come on, guys. Right now, unfortunately, James Berrigan from Apple is unable to join us live due to unforeseen circumstances today, and he sends his apologies. But a recording of his demo will be played, and the CP topic will be covered by the team. So, Johnny, James, and Karl, why don't you just share a little bit about yourselves and what you're going to be covering today on this masterclass before we get going?
I'll go first. Johnny Miller. I'm an engineer. I've been doing a lot of work with Kafka and Cassandra over the years. I work at AxonOps, one of the founders, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the experiences we've had building systems with Kafka and Cassandra, and I'll be hopefully covering off James's topic good enough. And that'll be me today. So yeah, Karl.
Thanks, Johnny. Hi all. My name is Karl Sorensen. I'm a senior data ops engineer within AxonOps. Got a lot of years experience with various engineering technologies, middleware, leading into integration services, and then which landed me square into Kafka as it was starting up. So a lot of background in Kafka. Today, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of Kafka Connect, and then I'm going to do a live demo to show how easy it is to set up and start streaming data with it. James?
Hi, I'm James Kavanagh. I'm software engineer and data engineer. I work for Vero, a social network, and I have a lot of experience with Cassandra and Kafka. I've been using for the last 15, 20 years. Yeah, and I'll just be helping, I guess, augmenting some of the stuff that Johnny's talking about to provide some meat to the bones of what he's talking about. That's me.
A lot more than that, James. Trust me.
Well, that's great. It's great to hear from you. And listen, we're going to be coming back to you soon. You're going to be unpacking lots of great things for us today. So thanks for the heads up. It's really good to get to know you a little bit more. So guys, as I mentioned, AxonOps is hosting today's webinar, and I promise that this is the only marketing slide that you will see. But for those unfamiliar with AxonOps, we provide software and support for the unified monitoring and operations of Cassandra and Kafka clusters via a single pane of glass. Now, frustrated by the lack of effective tooling, a team of veteran data platform experts built AxonOps. And today it is the foundation for maintaining the health of business critical data platforms worldwide across multiple industries and use cases. Okay, well, look, it's great to see so many people join us. We had over 100 registrations, so it's great. Welcome if you've just joined. We've just got started, so you've not missed too much. I just wanted to let you know that we run masterclasses here every 4 to 6 weeks, and we alternate between two main focus areas. The first one is Cassandra and Kafka deep dives, and what we do there is we explore best practices, architecture, and operational insights, and that's our kind of a focus around those types of masterclass. Then we have a second type, and that is AxonOps for Cassandra and Kafka, and that they're really focused for our AxonOps customers and those wanting to review their Cassandra and Kafka tooling. Also, just want to give you a heads up, we're going to be running until the top of the hour, but you are in for a surprise today because we are going to be also hosting a special masterclass after dark, kind of like a bonus session, if you like. And it's where we're going to have our masters that you've already seen. They're going to be sticking around to continue to answer your questions. So if you have time, we'd love for you to stay and join us. And I think last time we went on for about another 30 minutes extra. So if you've got the time, it'd be great to hang with us. Now, you'll also see that you have a Q&A on your Zoom. So that's where you ask your questions. So we want you to participate in this webinar today. It's great to hear from the masters, but we want to hear from you to our audience. So prepare your toughest questions. Let's really test these guys today. And we want to hear your comments too. You know, tell us how it's going. Is it working? Is it hitting the spots for you on this webinar today? Okay, Johnny and our team of masters, we're coming to you in a second, but just before we do, we have some more exciting news to share. We want to let you know, there's so much going on here, guys, but we are going to get into it. We want to let you know from our last masterclass in January that our winner for the free training seat on John Haddad's training course, which was worth £2,500, was won by, and we're going to have a little drum roll here. I don't think we really got the special effects. Oh, well, we've got the curtain drawing. Is Noble. So well done, Noble. That's really great. And if you're here, hopefully you're on this masterclass today. A special welcome to you and anybody from the NISC group, and anybody else from St. Louis. If you're in that area, give us a wave, give us a thumbs up. Let us know on your Q&A. That would be great. We'll give you a shout out a bit later, perhaps. Now, guys, don't worry for all those that missed out. All right, there is only one winner, but for those that missed out, because we've got another prize to win on today's masterclass, we are going to be giving away 4 Cassandra or Kafka support tickets. All right, so just want to be clear here, these have an SLA attached and can be used for anything from performance health check to helping fix a critical issue. So there's lots up for grabs here. So what do you need to do to win? I hear you say, well, it's very simple. Just stay on for the hour session today, and your name will go into the draw, and we'll confirm the winner and let them know over this next week. Now, Johnny, we and team, we are all set to go. So I'm going to hand over to you guys.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Steve. And good luck to whoever wins those tickets. It might be me answering that support ticket. So, what are we covering today? So the first thing, a bunch of topics we're going to try and cover off with myself, Karl, and James. First area we're going to dive into is why are Cassandra and Kafka working so well together. We're going to discuss similarities between Kafka and Cassandra, and then myself and James will dig into some of the patterns for around Kafka and Cassandra and a bit of real life experience from James, and he'll definitely have some insights and experiences to share with us. And then Karl's got a pretty detailed dive into Kafka Connect and Cassandra, and he's going to fire it all up and show you a demo there as well. And then finally, I'm going to step in for James, who couldn't join us, and give a best as I can an overview of Cassandra CDC and the Cassandra enhancement proposal around Kafka for that. Cool. All right, then let's get started. So why are Cassandra and Kafka perfect partners? Well, I mean, there's a lot of common things between the two technologies. They have a lot of shared strengths. They're scalable. They're fault tolerant. They have a distributed architecture. They're being used a lot for kind of modern use cases, IoT, analytics, microservices, your kind of write-heavy workloads where you're generating a lot of data, which is what everything is kind of doing these days. And they both are great for storage for your real-time streaming. Now, similarities between them. So distributed architecture, both Kafka and Cassandra are designed to be distributed. They're designed to be horizontally scalable. You add more nodes to the cluster, etc. And they have no single points of failure. They're designed for high availability, fault tolerance, and also being geographically distributed environments. On the scalability, you see it all the time. The approach to how Kafka partitions topics is kind of not dissimilar to how Cassandra does stuff, and then how you scale that out by adding more topics, etc. And they're also very highly performant. These are the systems that really just take a hammering and can take the data in. And they have similar things around consistency, replication, and they meet similar kind of use cases. So one of the reasons why Kafka and Cassandra are the perfect partners is because in my opinion and my experience, Kafka is not a database. It often gets proposed for such, and it does have very similar characteristics to databases as well. But it's not a database. It's a brilliant streaming platform, and it's what it's designed for, with real-time data ingestion, processing, and all that good stuff, decoupling of your consumers, your producers, and everything. It is awesome at, but it's not a database. Yeah. And when I come across it a lot where people have designed platforms or systems with that kind of thought in mind, and you really do start to observe kind of architectural inefficiencies in that approach. So really what we're kind of proposing here is like, if you need that type of behavior complementing Kafka, well, Cassandra is a great choice because there's a big synergy between these two techs. They handle all that real-time streaming. They can get the data in. Cassandra it's a database. It's a durable database. It does everything you want from databases. It's great for your querying, your analytics, etc. And also, both those technologies are really cost-effective. You can get a lot of data for your buck with both those techs. So I know it's a lot of people do take that opinion, but I don't think it's a database. But I mean, if you do, I'm open to questions and concerns. But there are use cases where you see people putting kind of immutable cold data in there and leaving it there. Maybe that's valid for it. But if you need to be querying the data, you need it in a database. So interesting patterns for Kafka and Cassandra. I mean, there's a lot of cool patterns for Cassandra, for Kafka, and really what I'm going to zone in on here is a couple of really specific things that, because you're using Cassandra, you can leverage that as part of your application stack. The first thing that, we did this with James as well on what we're doing, is this timestamped enriched data pipelines. Cassandra has this great feature we all know about, last write wins, and it's always about time. And when you're writing to Cassandra, or you can use a thing called using timestamp, where you set the time the data is written as when it gets written into Cassandra. So you can use that approach by, it doesn't matter when it gets to Cassandra, but it will come in and be written as it arrived at that point in time. And that gives you very accurate temporal ordering for kind of time-sensitive applications. The other one, which is a really cool feature, is leveraging the partitioning of Kafka with your stream of data. So if you use Cassandra's partition key as the Kafka message key, what you're able to leverage there is ordered processing of the consumption of that message as it comes into Kafka. So what that gives you is the ability to essentially avoid any kind of race conditions around related events sitting on that partition. But also, when things go wrong, when Kafka is writing to databases, and you're trying to say it was writing to a Postgres or MySQL or a kind of a B-tree type database, when these types of problems with out of order consumption of messages or duplicate consumption of messages happen, it's very hard to pick apart and fix this when you're tied together. But when you use the timestamp enrichment, the partition key ordering, reconsumption of messages isn't such a bad thing. And the time, if it comes in later, it will still apply as that time. And then there's some great stuff you can do with streaming ETL and aggregation, and the tech around there with Flink, Quarkus, Kafka Streams, and stuff like that. So so I hope that kind of made sense. But those timestamp enrichment and partition key ordering are really useful. And this is where my good friend James comes in, and because I was working with James to build a platform leveraging that approach in there. And James, do you want to give a kind of a brief overview of that, or do you want me to?
Well, I guess I can give you an overview. Sure. We are writing to Kafka using gRPC via protobuf services for ingestion, handling significant write volumes, and yeah, we're using all the qualities you're talking about in terms of the Kafka streaming and Cassandra for the durable storage at the end of it. So it's been really powerful pattern to use, and the scalability is exceptional. And yeah, the cost of running the setup has been very low considering the volumes of data that we have to handle on a daily basis. Yeah, the gRPC services are written in Quarkus, and yeah, it just kind of works. It's a really great pattern to use, and yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, no, so what you're seeing in front of there is a rough sequence diagram kind of showing the flow. So you have a web service gRPC endpoint, and essentially it's producing the message onto Kafka with the timestamp from when it hit the endpoint and the partition key that you designate that request correlates to. It gets popped into the Kafka messages and then pumped into Cassandra at the end. It's what's nice about it is how simple it is. Certainly when there's any issues or problems or things restarting or failure and you get blips or issues with consumer group expansion or things dying while the consumer group dies, all those kind of things. You can get little blips with Cassandra and reconsumptions and things like that. And it just kind of handles it through, recovers elegantly. And the thing that was most interesting was the latency for doing these kind of hops. We expected to see like really long lag on how, but it was like milliseconds getting through and being processed.
Yeah, very powerful. Yeah, and yeah, say like if you have issues with writing to Cassandra at any point, or there was a problem at some point, the service picks it back up again and you can reconsume messages and rewrite them again because of the timestamp feature. You're not having any issues with getting out of order data or anything like that.
So James, that's the good stuff. What were the kind of the problems, the challenges you found when you kind of took this approach in the app?
Well, dealing with an existing system, I guess, is the major problem. Integrating with it and making sure that you do that as seamlessly as possible, don't cause any problems, any outages, and so on, that kind of thing. So that was kind of the biggest challenge, I think, really. But yeah, because it was to some extent it's an older architecture, we had to plan pretty carefully to make sure that we didn't run into any issues when we were doing migration of data or anything like that. Yeah, so it's but it kind of is just working right now, and we got it running really well.
Awesome. And you've also, not necessarily like this, but you've done a lot of, I know you've from known you for many years, you've done a lot of work with Flink, Spark streaming, all that kind of stuff, using Kafka and Cassandra for a long time. I mean, do you think those kind of technologies can also fit into this pattern as well?
Yeah, I mean, we've used them a number of times, not just in my current role, but previously, aggregating data before writing into Cassandra, but also using it for writing into other data stores as well. Works really well. And yeah, it means you can scale things out really well. And we've been recently using it not just to write into Cassandra, but also OLAP databases and all sorts of stuff. So there's a lot of flexibility there built in that you can plug into, and yeah, very powerful.
Yeah, because you can have like Flink, for example, sitting there listening, consuming the same events coming through Kafka that might go off to Cassandra, can also be picked up by something like Flink or Spark and enhanced, decorated, add more data, pop it into search, pop it into OLAP, whatever kind of store you want. That was one of the things I quite liked about it. You had this super simple way of hooking into this stream and just popping in anything you like off the side of the stream and decorating that data. But all right, well, I'm just a final question, James. So Kafka, Cassandra, it's been an interesting few years with the tech, with the way that it's evolved and everything like that. What are you seeing? What do you think, in your experience, how things are going to go in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think it's only going to gain interaction because it's, it's a really great pattern to use in terms of just real-time data streaming, event sourcing, and so on. Yeah, decoupling of services, and just enabling your real-time data pipelines. Yeah, it just I don't know. I just love it. I think it's great. So yeah, I obviously there's I think we're going to talk a little bit later on about the CDC stuff, which we've done a kind of similar sort of thing with the data migration, I guess, that we've performed on the existing application I work on. Yeah, and the CEP 4.4 that you're going to talk about. So yeah, I think it's a definite game changer.
Cool. All right, James. Thanks.
Hey, Johnny, I'm going to jump in really quick before we move on to the next bit. So Rahul and John have asked if we're going to be recording the session. Yes, absolutely. And we'll make sure that you guys get the recordings on that so you can play back as many times as you want. Ardesh K said, Kafka can directly write to DB? Question mark. So was that a statement or was that a question?
Well, Kafka, it's obviously you can plug in things to Kafka to write to DBs. Yeah, you can.
Great. And then we've got
covering that as well in the Kafka Connect section.
That's actually that's a perfect segue to Karl.
Okay. Well, just before we do, Sashi S says, what tech stack we use to sync the data from Kafka to Cassandra? I think what tech stack can we use? Maybe was the question.
I think you got a lot of choice. For that, I think you can pick anything. You've got Kafka Connect, what Karl will kind of show you. You can write your own microservices, which is kind of what James was doing with Quarkus, which is a fantastic framework. Love Quarkus. You've got things like Flink, Spark, etc. Yeah. So yeah. No,
great. Well, keep your questions coming in, everybody. Let's keep them going. And Johnny, back to you.
Well, actually, back to Karl.
Back to Karl.
Perfect timing. All right. Thanks all. Hi, everyone. Today, I just want to give you a quick rundown on Kafka Connect, what it is, how it works, and then we're going to do a always risky live demo showing just a quick setup, how quickly we can define a connector and have it streaming data from Kafka into Cassandra. So covering some of the questions we've just seen and basically just showing how it works. So what is Kafka Connect? Right. Kafka Connect is a scalable fault-tolerant framework for streaming data between Kafka and external systems. Now, I'm going to cover some of these points a little bit in later slides. But it's a common framework that you can use. It comes with its own infrastructure components, so it is a separate thing to Kafka itself, but it is very tightly integrated. It simplifies data integration without requiring custom code, and it supports both source and sinks. So it allows you to push data into Kafka from an external system and then push it from Kafka into a totally different external system if you want. All right, next slide, please, Johnny. Right, so why do we use it? And this discussion sometimes comes up because a lot of people and senior developers especially often say, well, why would I want some custom frame or some common framework when I can just write a microservice myself to do that? And that it's a perfectly valid thing to do. And as we mentioned before, there's all kinds of different technologies to allow you to do that through Flink, Quarkus, anything. There are so many different Kafka libraries that you can do this in. And if that's the way you want to go, then that's fine. But Kafka Connect has some real advantages to it. So we can talk about scalability. So Kafka Connect can run in a cluster, so it can be distributed across multiple nodes in multiple data centers or zones. If you want to horizontally scale it, you can. It's very simple to do. It's extremely fault tolerant. So part of that is that it stores its active runtime state within dedicated Kafka topics, and Kafka is highly resilient. And which that really means so that if you ever have a system outage of your Kafka Connect or your external systems, then when service is restored, it automatically knows where it was and just is able to resume. Because it's clustered, if you've got a failure on one node, it will seamlessly shift all the workers over into the other node. So it's a very resilient and fault-tolerant system. Speed and ease of deployment. So while, yes, you can always create custom apps to do this kind of stuff, when you're dealing with Kafka Connect, because it's a framework, because it's consistent, if you're talking to lots of different systems, rather than having to write custom microservices for all these different systems, you've got a single system that can basically do it all. Standard configuration. So Kafka Connect is basically controlled via REST API calls. The configurations are all basically just JSON files that you post into the interface, and it's very simple, good for version control, good for GitOps and all that kind of processing. And then we've got data type enforcing. So it natively supports schema registry. If you want to ensure that the structure of the data going in and out of your Kafka cluster is consistent, then you're able to enforce that through schema registry. All right, I can go to the next. Cool, thank you. So yeah, the basic architecture of a Kafka Connect cluster, and I'll talk about clusters specifically because that's the main use case of it, is you've got your workers. So your workers are your actual Kafka Connect runtime. It is a Java service. So this is your JVM effectively. It can run on VMs or containers or bare metal if you want. You've then got connectors. So connectors have two sort of two subcomponents to them. You've got your plugins that control how Kafka Connect interacts with external systems. These are Java libraries that actually tell the connectors how to interact with external systems. And then you've got configurations that define how the data is moved from one system to the other. These configurations are just basic JSON files, which we'll cover in the demo in a little bit. And then you've got tasks. So tasks are children or subcomponents of the connectors, and these are the things that actually do the work. So they are assigned to move the data itself. You can run multiple tasks in a connector if you want to run highly parallel jobs, or you sometimes only want to run one for serial purposes, and that's the default state. And then there's a REST interface. So as I've mentioned before, everything is controlled through REST calls, post, get, delete, all that kind of stuff. And there's a fairly comprehensive API documentation for that as well. Here we've got a very, very simplistic diagram of how this works. So you can see down the bottom there, we've got a Connect cluster. And within that Connect cluster on the left, we've got a source connector with a single task. And that task is responsible for pulling data from an external system. Can be any type of external system that's defined. And then that source connector, so it pulls it from the external system and then writes it into a Kafka cluster. On the right of the Connect cluster, you've got a sync connector, and that is responsible for pulling data from Kafka and writing it into your external system. So I put a few examples of diagrams there just to show the different systems that can talk to, but I'll cover that in a little bit more as well. So yeah, types of connectors, that leads in perfectly. There are lots of different types of connectors. For example, we've got database connectors, base JDBC ones allowing you to talk to Postgres or Oracle. There's MongoDB connectors, Cassandra, Influx, Redis. As far as storage, we've got S3 connectors, GCS, Azure Blob file, Azure Blobs, native files connectors if you want to do that, HDFS. We've got integration connectors, so we go from Kafka to IBM MQ, ActiveMQ, Azure Event Hub, Elasticsearch. We've got a special type of connector called the CDC connectors, and Johnny will cover this a little bit later. Some of the best known examples of this is called the Debezium connector, and this is change data capture. So, pulling data from, say, an Oracle replication log and creating an event from that and inserting it into Kafka. And then, yeah, many, many others. There are literally hundreds, possibly thousands of connectors. If you've got a system, you can talk to it via Kafka Connect. And on the off chance there isn't, you can actually roll your own connectors fairly easily. The the interfaces are really quite easy to understand, and we've created several connectors for various bits and pieces. So quite easy to do that if you needed to.
It's quite there's quite a nice API you just implement for the Kafka Connect stuff. It's quite simple to build your own Kafka connectors. It is cool, particularly how it deploys it all out into a whole bunch of workers, and you can just send it all out. It's yeah, it's nice. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so here we've got a just an example of a connector config, and this is going to be the exact one I use for the demo in a minute, but it's a lot easier to see it on here rather than in a terminal window. As you can see, it's just basic JSON. You define a name of the connector, and then you define configs for the connector. I've separated some of these configs into different color classes here. The purple or the pink ones, I guess, are connectors that are generic to every connector. So you can see here connector class. So you have to give it the class that it will load. You specify the number of tasks that it wants to run. Down the bottom, you've got value converter, and that is indicating that it will be handling JSON data. So it will know to automatically structure that data from JSON coming into JSON objects. And then you can just see down the bottom, we're not using schemas for this, so I've just disabled that. And then the green configs there are specific to the Cassandra sync connector. So we're just using a connector provided by DataStax at the moment, and these are configs that are specific to this particular connector. So all different connectors will have different configs as well for this, but here you can see that we've got a topics config, which tells you what topic to read from, the contact points, which is the Cassandra server we're going to write to, the DC we're writing to, and then the final green line there is how this connector does the mapping between the data that's coming in from the Kafka topic into the table that we'll be writing to in Cassandra. Okay, so what we'll do now is we will do a demo. So I will take control of the screen, and this is where we pray that the demo gods are kind today.
Yeah, there's some good questions coming in while you're doing there. A lot of them relate. I'll dig into more when we discuss the CDC stuff later on. But there's one there. Does Kafka Connect push data towards Cassandra, or do you need a pull mechanism? You can do either or, sync or source. Are you able to change data model with Cassandra when there's schema changes? I'll point something out that later, Piotr. Dave has a question. The connector support, yep, both source pull and sync push, yep. And Rahul has an interesting question. Can you allocate multiple data centers in load balancing.local DC property for a multi-DC Cassandra cluster env? I'm not sure I followed that question, to be honest. I think you can point your connect at whatever DCs in your Kafka cluster you want as well. Cool. Anyways, Karl, over to you on the demo.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is just show you, I've got some leftover Zoom stuff, is I'm just going to show you how we set up a connector and how simple it is, and then I'm going to show you how quickly it is to basically set up a stream. Right, so I want
to just zoom in a bit on the terminal there.
Yeah, I'm not going to be in the terminal for long anyway. And it's not letting me zoom in anyway.
Yeah, you can see that. That's okay.
So anyway, this is really just a Kafka cluster I've spun up. It's all entirely Dockerized. So I've got a couple of brokers and a craft controller and a single Kafka Connect node. It is running a cluster, but it's just a single node cluster. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I have a config file, which is the exact one I showed you before. And I'm just going to post that to the REST interface. All right, so returns back the status or the config, and then there is that fingering everything. Just to kill the session. Okay, so status. Right, so what I've forgotten to do is create the table. So you can instantly see that the connector has returned an error saying that the table doesn't exist. So what we can do is we can create the table. Now this, I don't know how well published this is, but this is a tool we've produced called AxonOps Workbench, and it is a Cassandra Workbench GUI tool. So it allows you to maintain and manage a cluster via a desktop app. You can see here, this is connected into our webinar cluster. I have a Connect demo here, key space, but there's no table yet. So let me just create a table quickly. So table executed, and then you can see over here in the drop down that the table is now in the metadata fields there. So we can see the table there, all the details, etc. in that. All right, so what I will do is I will go back to there. I will just delete the config and then repost it. Directory. So repost it, and then if I run a status connector on it, you can see now here, and no, it's not very clear here, sorry guys, but it basically just says we've now got a connector state of running. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to this is a simple pod I'm just firing up, and all it is doing, it's a simple Python app that is writing into a Kafka topic, so that we've got some data that we can actually see moving in. So if we shift to ActionOps, so this is our ActionOps portal, and this is what we can use to manage Kafka clusters. It is, for those not familiar with ActionOps, it is a proper data ops managing platform. It allows you to view a whole bunch of metrics on your cluster. You can show logs and events, services, checks, alerts, operations, so we can view topics, brokers, all the ACLs, all the Kafka information. Right, if we then go to topics here, we can see that we now have records writing into the topic. Okay. And then we can also see here we've got some metrics to show that we've got a connector working. The task is running, and we've got task count there. So the one task I've started is now running. So if we go back to our Workbench product, we can then run a query. Connect demo. The demo gods are going to be unkind, are they? All right. Let me just restart that. Sorry. Not sure if my network is going a little bit flaky at the moment. It is excellent. Perfect. Yeah. That's because my VPN has died.
Yeah, so while you're connecting up, there's a couple of questions came in. Rahul had a great question. What are these tools you're seeing there? Rahul, those are that's AxonOps tool suite for Cassandra. You've got Workbench, which is the desktop app for interacting, as you can see, Karl with Cassandra, and you've got our AxonOps monitoring and managing tool, which provides monitoring and management for Kafka and Cassandra. So
Hey, Johnny, just a quick one to jump in there because you mentioned that as well. I saw another request come in to me about maybe you could just spend a minute just to just share a little bit more about Workbench.
Yeah, for sure. Workbench. It's been a labor of love for a while now. It's a completely open source Apache licensed application. It's completely free. It's up on GitHub. It's up on our website, and it will for all your operating systems. It's got some great features in there. You've got an enhanced CQL console, which is what you're seeing there. You can also, if you prefer traditional SQL/SH, you can toggle back if you click the switch terminal button. You've got a nice way of viewing your data in the tree, and there's a whole bunch of right-click kind of actions coming in on the tree to create key spaces, tables, generate inserts, all that kind of stuff. So the goal is to give you a very easy to use tool. You can also fire up local clusters in Cassandra using locally installed Podman or Docker. So if you want to play around with different versions of Cassandra, you can fire up locally in there, and you can also check all of your cluster connectivity configuration into Git safely, because we store all of the necessary security stuff on your host keychain and OS. So everything you really need to look after Cassandra and Kafka. So yeah, there you go. Ask a simple question.
That's great. That's lovely, John. Thanks.
And the other thing I wanted to show was, so this is the dashboard pane for AxonOps, which is currently monitoring a Kafka cluster. But from here, you can also switch to our Cassandra, exact same Cassandra cluster we're writing to, and we'll be able to see here under overview, we can view the key space and table, and we can see records getting written in as soon as the connector is running. So once again, within ActionOps, you can switch between your Kafka and your Cassandra clusters, just literally at a click of a button there.
Sure. That's awesome, Karl.
Right, and that is literally how simple it is to start shipping data from one system to the other.
So essentially, you pumped a bunch of messages into Kafka. You had Kafka Connect running on a kind of a cluster of workers sitting there consuming those messages off there, and then syncing them, writing them into Cassandra, and you can have a very dynamic config with the mappings of messages to Cassandra tables and all that good stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right. I think I need to stop sharing.
Yeah.
Okay. James, anything on that? Have you ever used Connect?
Did a little bit, yeah, before using a CDC, Debezium and so on. And used some with a client once for doing data transformation, again from Cassandra to other external systems. So yeah, it was good.
Oh.
Good, did the job.
I'll save that thought on the CDC. We might want to comment on the next couple of slides, the next section. So, thanks, Karl, for that demo and overview. It's quite cool, actually. It's a very generic way of just deploy, do it, sync. I quite like that.
It's a framework.
Yeah, I often write the code. So Cassandra change data capture, CDC. You've heard this mentioned a few times already. So CDC, it's a common feature in a lot of databases. It's essentially it's a mechanism to send mutations, capture the mutations coming into Cassandra, and write them to a commit log that you can then consume for external processing. It's not if you want to turn this on in Cassandra, you enable it, and then you see a special commit log directory on the file system called CDC raw, and then these logs you have to do something with them. Okay. And you can see the kind of picture below showing roughly how that happens. So the reason why people like to use CDC is because it is quite handy to build kind of pipelines where, for example, you want the write into your database to happen and then emit that event out everywhere. So it's durably persisted, and then it tells everyone, hey, this has happened. Also data transformations, synchronizing data between different databases, between the same technologies. It gets used a lot. The problem with the challenge with Cassandra CDC is not a little challenge, yeah. There's the first challenge is it is complex to consume these CDC logs. Yeah, each Cassandra has to produce these commit logs, each replica, and so you have to write custom solutions to handle and reconcile these events, and also deduplicate the CDC log. Because if it's writing to, say you got a replication factor of 3 and you write to 3, well, you're going to get 3 CDC events to have to deal with. And there's also challenges there around, okay, well, consistency. Well, what if I wrote at local quorum, one succeeded, the other didn't? Well, what should I do with that? Or say I do a repair or a hint. It's complex. And the other risk with with CDC is you have a risk of data loss, because if you can't keep up with the CDC coming through, you can't take them out and delete them, because they're sitting in a directory on the file system, then there's a danger they're filling up your disk and causing an issue. So you have to kind of keep up with this when it's coming in and handle that. And then there's operational overhead. There's been, somebody, I think it was Rahul or Piotr, was asking questions around schema changes. Yeah, how do you handle an alter to a table? What does that look like when it comes out? How does it represent? So if you're consuming a CDC event and it's for a table and it's in a known structure, and then you write that code and you handle it, and all of a sudden somebody adds a new column. So there's another thing. Well, how do I handle this? So there's challenges around handling schema changes, and then different serialization formats to do this. But I mean, it's not possible, and it has been done. I mean, James, you were mentioning the Debezium CDC connector. Did you say you were using that with Cassandra, or was it something else?
No, not with Cassandra. No, that was with Postgres, Johnny. Yeah, so
yeah,
a bit different.
Yeah, and I mean, Karl, have you ever played around with CDC connectors?
I have, but more with Postgres and MySQL.
Yeah, no, so it's
Oracle once as well.
But point is, it's a cool feature. It's a really, really awesome thing to be able to use. But unfortunately, with Cassandra, it has been a bit hard to get it kind of working. So this is one of the reasons for Cassandra Enhancement Proposal 44, which is a Kafka integration for Cassandra CDC using the Cassandra Sidecar project. There's a QR code to the Confluence wiki for the enhancement proposal. Definitely worth a read. There's a link there to the Cassandra Sidecar project on GitHub as well, where this is runs. But essentially, the goal of step 44 is to simplify and enhance what I explained to you there, because you saw this. Oh, that's a lot of sharp corners there to make this work. And the goal is to make it simple for people to use and hook this up. And Kafka is by far the number one place people will want to put these CDC events. It's what everybody uses it predominantly for. So it's taking those CDC logs and it's putting them onto Kafka. And importantly, as Piotr was mentioning about schemas, it also puts it into a Avro format in a consumable format, and it's also interacting with schema registry to update the Avro schemas as part of the change. So if you alter the table, you'll see the corresponding thing reflected in your schema registry. Awesomely, and I'll explain how it, or I'll try to explain how it does the deduplication. It does do the deep deduplication of the mutations, and it does honor the consistency levels. So that situation I was telling you about, say you did a write at local quorum, but only one came back and the other one didn't, well, what do you do? And so it's able to go, no, that consistency level was not honored, so they won't emit the CDC event for it. My favorite feature about it is it's using Kafka as the best way to use Kafka, which is you're using an at least once delivery model. So you can, that problem I was mentioning about your disks filling up. Well, this is, Kafka is the great data kind of pipe for you just to send this out quickly. And when you use at least once delivery, it's even quicker for getting the stuff out. It's very resilient. There's a couple of corner cases around you can possibly get duplicate events, but Kafka's where it goes out to. So really tricky question here is, so how does it do this deduplication of the commit logs? And I'll caveat this. I was studying away on the documentation and the code, trying to figure out how it does. So I hope I haven't got it wrong. And I'll ask James to not you, James, other James. So first thing to point out is
Johnny, just to jump in, just to let you know, you've got about 5 minutes.
Okay. I'll speed up then. So basically, you deploy the sidecar next to all of your Cassandra nodes. Each sidecar on that Cassandra node is responsible for the tokens assigned to that Cassandra node. And what happens, the mutation comes into all of the replicas. It gets all of the sidecars are communicating with each other, and they're aware of who owns what, and it sends the CDC over to the owner of that, and then it does some checks to check, have I seen it before? It maintains a hash list of everything it's seen, and it's kept for an extended period of time. If it hasn't seen this CDC event before and it meets the associated consistency it was chosen, it pushes onto Kafka. If it doesn't, it will discard that mutation around for it. So it is complicated. Now, if you want to see a much more detailed talk, James gave this Cassandra contributor meeting on the enhancement proposal. So he goes into it in a lot of detail. So if you want to watch it, away you go. This is a quick demo.
Can everyone see that?
Of it running. So watch.
Yes, it's perfectly visible.
Okay, so in the top left corner, I've got CCM running. So that is just prove that's working, 3 nodes running locally. I have the Cassandra CQL shell open here. And then in the bottom right corner, in the right-hand side, I have the Cassandra sidecar running. And you can see it's come up with this CDC publisher. So I'm going to just paste in an example insert. So I'm going to insert into basic test, Apache Cassandra CDC demo, San Francisco, and today's date. And here we see a mutation that's just been logged. This is the Avro equivalent for that mutation. On the outside, we've got this sort of outer envelope, which has metadata about the mutation. So the source table, key space, the schema ID I mentioned before, the operation type, the fields updated as part of this mutation, and then range and tombstone. I'll demo later for range tombstones and TTL values. And then within that, we have the actual payload, which is the mutation event. So this schema worked well because the outer envelope can remain fixed as a static CDC envelope, and then the payload depends on the schema of the individual table. And that can change over time, and the schema UID will update as part of that.
Cool. So yeah, so if you want to dig into James's talk, in more detail, go have a look. It really is. But what's kind of cool about it is it really is solving a lot of the really hard problems around that, and the way it updates, maintains the schemas and et cetera, will, yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of seeing this in action. It also handles the hint. It's got stuff in around handling hints, handling repairs, all that stuff. So yeah, it's a good thing. So anyways, I think that's the end of the main content, Steve.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Johnny. Well, we've still got questions coming in, so keep your questions coming. I know masters are looking at those at the minute, but Johnny, James, and Karl, great demonstrations, lots of great insights. Thanks for that. And as I said, keep those questions coming in as well, audience. Well, look, we're nearly at the top of the hour, so shortly we're going to be moving into Masterclass After Dark. If you arrived late, it's where we continue to take more of your questions. But we're going to finish up shortly on our main session. But before we do, we've got a couple of really important things to mention. So Johnny, if we just go back to that slide there. So first up, we've got some helpful links. So some of the things that we've spoken about today, you'll see on the left-hand side there, we've got some helpful links, blogs, and our one-stop Cassandra operations as well from AxonOps, which is called Starter. So this is free for you to use and try out, where you can attach up to 6 nodes in a live production environment. So if you want to go on and test out some of the things that you've seen today, you've got this opportunity to do that. All right, you just you can stick your phone up on it, get the QR code, it will take you straight in. Secondly, in case we don't get to answer all of your questions, or maybe there's some more in-depth things that you want to have a chat to us about, we'd love to engage with you further. So we can do that very easily because we've got the masters here and they can help support you with any further questions you have. So if you want to book us in, you can do that with Book an Expert, and you'll see that up on the top right there. So if you want a little bit more time with us, just book us in and we'll be happy to spend that time with you. And finally, I want to just mention we've got our next masterclass up on the April. It's going to be April the 3rd, same time. We've got John Haddad who's going to be joining us as well. If some of you may remember, he was with us on the last masterclass. Had a great time. So come back and see John and hear a little bit more about what we've got to say on this next class. That's on the 3rd of April. Registration is now live. QR code's there. I think it's on the bottom right there for you. So you can get registration or registering now if you want. So well, listen, we mentioned earlier about Masterclass After Dark. It's coming up now. If this is the time we answer your questions, as I said, and it's basically a little bit of free consulting for you, so why not hang around and hang out with us and get those questions answered. So listen, Johnny, James, and Karl, is there any final comments or thoughts that you would like to share before we jump into our next session?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose for me, the thing I'm trying to get across here is that just really how the two of those tech together, when you have Kafka in there streaming the data in, Cassandra sitting underneath acting as its database, it's like they're made for each other. It's a great stack, and it means like I don't get woken up at night if things don't break. So that's it.
Great, James, Karl, anything from yourselves, or are we ready to step in?
No, I think Johnny's covered everything.
Yeah. Great. Good. All right. Well, listen, if you need to leave, thank you for attending. Really appreciate you joining us today. And we will be announcing the masterclass winner for the AxonOps support. I think there's 4, isn't there? We're going to be giving 4 support tickets away, and we hope to see you again on April the 3rd. So if you need to go, thanks ever so much. For those that can stick around, we're going to now dive into Masterclass After Dark, starting with some questions. But actually, before I think we kick off with questions, I think there's some discussion points that you wanted to talk around, Johnny, to get us going.
There was.
Well, there is now. Well, we've got some questions as well. So why don't you kick off with a couple of thoughts, Johnny? Well, and I'll have a look at some questions for you.
There's actually been some pretty good questions coming in that I'll just paraphrase some of them. Obviously, yes, it's being recorded. That's been asked.
Yeah.
I think the good questions around the tech stacks, what are the things that people are using: Spark, Quarkus, Flink, Connect, etc. One question there, it seems to be around the Kafka Connect. Can it source from Cassandra? Will it sync to Cassandra? It can do both, but the Kafka connectors that source from Cassandra, they're either dealing with the complexity around the existing commit log stuff, or they're executing queries that just poll tables. So it's not ideal. It does work. You can use it, but certainly SEP 44 is kind of going to make it much better. Another question there, pretty insightful one from Surab. Can there be Merkle tree checks in the commit log on the key level in CDC with local quorum? Maybe increase IO. Just a thought. That's an interesting idea. I have to say, yeah, possibly. I think I would suggest hop onto the Cassandra sidecar project. There's a lot of stuff, or in the Slack channel, and have a chat with James on that. But the way it's basically doing it is maintaining some kind of hash of everything, and that's how it's working out. Have I seen it before? Is it related? And I think and that as well. So, and then Rahul had some. Rahul had some good questions around deploying Kafka Connect. So around the local DC thing. So you were showing how when you configure Connect, you give it the local data center.
Yeah.
So what if you want it to point to different local data centers? It would be obviously.
You would have to set up a new connector for that. This particular connector only connects to a single DC. Yeah. And the idea with it is that you want to be connecting to what you're local to anyway. So ideally, with any of these systems, you do want to be ideally reading from the data locally. If you're doing that over WAN, it's going to introduce a lot of latency, etc.
But Rahul, it's pretty extensible. If you have a scenario specific to you that you want to do that, have the connects writing. I don't think it'd be particularly complicated to implement your own connector to do it exactly how you want it done. I think it's not. I mean, Karl, it's not complex code to build this, is it?
No. We've built several connectors for edge cases that standard connectors or off-the-shelf ones just weren't sort of meeting for us. So yeah, it's quite simple to do. There's Confluent especially have some very good documentation and some demos on how to spin up your own connector, basically start to finish type stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Looking through the questions. Yeah, Adarsh was pointing out again the load balancing options with the drivers, similar to that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much is exposed of the drivers specifics through the connector config, Adarsh, because as you know, the driver is very, very configurable. There's a lot of options you could set there. I don't think all of them are exposed through the connection piece, but maybe again you could possibly implement your own, or you might be able to. I've not tried it, but as it's Java, Karl, and it's using the Java driver, you could possibly pass the driver configuration on the class path to kind of tune the driver specifically. Is that how they suggest it?
You might be able to. There's a way you can override a lot of default configurations within the Kafka connector itself as well. So you can provide full class paths to a configuration and then override it. But I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure with this particular connector if you can do that or not.
Okay, cool.
Great. Well, listen, we've still got over 20 people actually, which is pretty cool, on with us live. That's great. So guys, look, whatever questions you've got around any of this subject matter at all, shoot them away. Let's see if we can push our masters a little bit on some of the things that maybe they might be challenging, that you might be struggling with at the minute. Maybe there's some projects that you're working on that you want to share as well, and you want the guys to comment. So we'll welcome any more questions coming in. Johnny.
Yeah, Piotr has asked, I think, a more general question on metrics exporting from Cassandra. What is the best metric exporter for Cassandra? Is there a how to ship metrics from Cassandra to Mimir? Well, Piotr, you're asking the wrong guy, because I would say AxonOps is the best No, but in all seriousness, I think you got a lot of choice out there in the ecosystem for taking metrics out of it. What is the best? I will definitely say AxonOps for the performance. But there's, you got your usual, prom exporters, what's that, Grafana, Alloy, agents. You can pump it out to prom and things like that. But I would suggest, Piotr, we have a really good blog on our website that did some very detailed benchmarking and analysis of all the different options you've got around there. Let me bring it up and show you it. But yeah, we did some pretty good benchmarks on performance, things like that. Let me get it's here. Let me do that. Any other questions coming in while I pull up the blog? There you go. Let me share this. So this blog here, do go have a look on our website under the blogs, monitoring Cassandra, the cost collector metrics. It is quite a good detailed analysis breakdown of different Cassandra versions, the different types of things for exporting your metrics, configuration, AxonOps, MCAC, JMX, Prom, all the various things, and compares the performance, the load. So have a look at that, Piotr. I think there's also a talk from Cassandra Summit on this as well. You could see as well. I think it's online on YouTube.
So Johnny, I've actually got a question, but I've got a question to the audience. Okay, so this is my question to you all that's still with us live, and we've got more than 20, so that's great. If you could choose the topic for a masterclass, what would it be? All right, so obviously around what we're talking about, Cassandra, Kafka, AxonOps, those areas. What would the topic be? And now, Johnny, we've done a few masterclasses, haven't we, over the last 6 months or so? And what's some of the ones that we've already had? Maybe just to remind the guys, because we record them all, so you can go back, you can have a look. But we've done backup and restore, haven't we? What else have we covered off?
Oh gosh, backup.
I'll put you on the spot now.
Oh crikey! What have you done? Yeah, you should know that, Steve.
Well, we've done some featuring, haven't we, around some operational side of things.
Well, we got.
I know that you've done some. Yeah.
We got the last one from John Haddad and Jordan West on diagnosing problems in Cassandra. We got one on app development. I think that was me a while ago on how to robustly build apps, because we find a lot of the issues in the field are from basically deficiently built apps that maybe modeling and things like that. So it's a good talk on that.
Well, actually, Subuto B said data modeling, tuning post implementation.
Okay.
There we go. Something for you to work on there, Johnny. What else? What else would you like? Come on, let's hear some more. What's some other subjects that you would really like a little bit more insight in? We'd love to know. Have you got any particular ones, Johnny, that you'd say you'd like to put out there?
Let's shift the question. Karl, James.
There we go.
Topic to you.
I'd like to do one on OLAP and modeling and getting data from Kafka into OLAP.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. That one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
also Flink. Flink's been on my to-do list for a deep dive for quite a while. I've not spent as much time on it as I'd like. I think you've used it quite a bit, haven't you, James?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of marries up with what you're just saying, in the sense that that's kind of what we're doing right now, is using Flink for that very purpose. So along with various OLAP data stores and then getting the right performance out of that and that kind of thing, deep dive. But yeah, that sounds like a good topic.
Yeah. I always like security, but no, it's a bit dull. You do one on securing your Cassandra cluster. Steve has asked there, Can you talk a little bit more about streaming data out of a Cassandra table to a Kafka topic? I need to look more deeply into CDC, but short of that, any other insights? We are dealing with an issue with long-running queries to, one, identify the IDs of the records we are trying to get out, and two, select the record for export one by one. With large tables, our current solution is quite slow. Yeah, okay. I mean, if you wanted to, I think, oh, yeah, that's
I was going to say that's a book a session, possibly, isn't it, Johnny?
Yeah,
that's a great example.
If CDC is, or James, Karl, any response to that question? All right.
No. And it's, I guess I need a little bit more information, but I suppose, yeah, there are various ways to skin that cat in terms of, maybe using Spark or another solution to retrieve the data from the Cassandra in the first place, put it somewhere where you can maybe then do your diagnostics on it, which I've done in the past, right into Parquet and things like that to kind of remove the load from your production cluster.
Okay. So it's basically trying to, so I mean, CDC to identify what I think is a fat partition. It would be, I wouldn't use CDC for that, but if he's trying to diagnose where he's got some bad data. I mean, there are statistics within Cassandra. If you run no-tool table stats, you'll get back the Cassandra maintains a score of the largest kind of partitions, etc. in there. So you might be able to see the partition key of what the largest are. If that's not working, yeah, I would probably be looking at, I would do a Sparky thing to scan through and try and find that partition if I can identify it.
So what I've done as well here, you'll see, Steve, I've put a link in the chat there. So because we do probably need a little bit more information. This is an absolute perfect example, isn't it, Johnny? I think of one of our expert sessions where we will get the team with you on that, and we'll deep dive in. And it may be that we might need a couple of those sessions. They're absolutely free, and we'll be more than happy to help you and work alongside you on some of those things that you're looking to do at the moment. Might speed up things for you. So there's the link, and if anybody else wants to take advantage of that link, then go ahead. I think you can all see it. Can you see that there, Johnny? The link that I've put through. Just wanted to make sure that you could all see it.
No.
No, we need to repeat the link.
Yeah, let's put it in again.
Where are you putting it?
I put it in the chat there to answer Steve's question. But
yeah, the answer to Steve's question about the CDC stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Book an expert.
You got it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. There we go. Great. All right. Are any more questions coming in? We still got. Let's have a little quick check on.
Gotcha's got a good suggestion for something on scale, like terabytes and terabytes of scale of data. We can be interesting kind of notes from the field on something that's an enormous Cassandra cluster. We'd have to. Problem is, most of the enormous Cassandra clusters they don't like to talk about. But he's also mentioning he's posted a YouTube video on mutual TLS in Cassandra. Yeah, I mean that's always painful to set up for sure. I think everyone's shaking their head on who could we punish for doing a webinar on setting up mutual TLS?
Oh, that would be
on everything.
fun, wouldn't it?
Kafka, Cassandra, your applications, post level verification as well.
Oh, had a lot of fun with that recently.
Okay, well, listen, we still got nearly 20 people online with us. I think we're gonna wrap up in a couple of minutes. So if there's any final questions that you've got, maybe is there any that we've not covered yet, Johnny? Or are we all good with that? Otherwise,
yeah, no, I think they're all. I think they've all been answered. But yeah, guys, everyone fire in more questions. Not to me, to James.
Well, listen, if one comes in, we're going to go back to it. But look, I just want to say a big, massive thanks to you, Johnny, James, and Karl. Really appreciate you coming along and being our Cassandra and Kafka masters today, and also you, the audience. I mean, look, we've got nearly 20 of you that are still with us after an hour and 15 minutes. That's pretty good going, right? We should give some T-shirts away or some prizes just for that, I think, Johnny, for next time maybe. But listen, we really do hope you've enjoyed the session. I guess the fact you're still here, it's a thumbs up, so that's really good. And look, we want to see you again, so come back on April the 3rd. And I think, look, we've got one more question. I was just going to say goodbye from us all, but is there one more that's just come in there, Johnny?
Just saying thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you too. And listen, take care, stay safe, and from all of us here at AxonOps, a big thank you. Cheers. Bye.
See you guys.
Guys, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.